meeting that will be held in Johannesburg next week. We are pleased that the first meeting of BRICS women ministers, as well as the first meeting of disability experts that was held in Gauteng, that will be held in Gauteng next week. We also are anticipating some post-summit meetings at the ministerial level, ministers meeting. Well, all of these activities build up to the 15th BRICS Summit, which will provide an opportunity for BRICS leaders to reflect on all the elements of BRICS cooperation, including the practical, mutually beneficial areas of BRICS cooperation, global economic and political developments, as well as the global governance reform agenda. The summit will also provide an opportunity to amplify the voices of our collaborators in Africa and the Global South when we host the BRICS Africa Outreach and BRICS Plus dialogues. Our president has confirmed South Africa's readiness to host the 15th summit and to have it as a physical meeting in Sandton, Johannesburg. This is the first BRICS summit to be hosted in person since the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent global travel restrictions. We are really, really pleased that we as South Africa can, through hosting such a meeting, continue to play a positive role in world affairs, advocating peace and diplomacy through our work. The summit will be attended by the leaders of Brazil, India. Can you please mute?
Sorry, Minister, we seem to have lost the minister. Minister is on mute.
Okay, it's refusing to unmute. All right, now it's no longer muted. So as I was saying, the summit will be attended by the presidents of Brazil, India, China, the Prime Minister of India, and President of China, as well as President of South Africa as host. President Putin will actively participate in some of the leaders' discussions virtually, but will not attend in person. The Department of Trade, Industry and Competition and the BRICS Business Council will be hosting a content-rich BRICS business program from the 19th to the 23rd of August, an event which seeks to foster economic growth, promote collaboration, attract investment, and showcase opportunities within South Africa, Africa, and all the BRICS countries. All BRICS business councils will be bringing large business delegations to South Africa to participate in this meeting. Delegations will undertake sector-focused visits to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and to the special economic zones in the Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Gauteng, and KwaZulu-Natal. There'll be an exhibition at Gallagher Estate, which will include a product wing showcasing proudly South African products and services from over 200 South African companies and more from companies from the rest of the continent. These business-to-business interactions are extremely important. They're aimed at increasing intra-African as well as intra-BRICS trade and investment. South African industry leaders, BRICS experts, and invited African businesses will engage in a range of dialogues to foster an environment of collaboration, driving strategic economic partnerships to expand trade and investment opportunities, knowledge exchange, and capacity building. The program will include the following dialogues: Energy Cooperation Forum, accelerating infrastructure development through government, business, private partnerships, embracing the digital economy for transformation and advancement, a BRICS dialogue on an airlift strategy, importance of skills for emerging and future jobs, the development of finance institutions funding instruments, a popular discussion at present, and then the BRICS Manufacturing Forum, and finally an ocean economy high-level dialogue. You will all recall that the BRICS Business Council was established in 2013, so it celebrates its 10th anniversary in 2023. And we look forward to celebrating this, as well as the outcomes of the review of the work of the Council in its first 10 years. Minister Patel will provide more details on the business program in due course. With respect to the leaders, the first event on the BRICS Leaders Program is the BRICS Business Forum Leaders Dialogue on the afternoon of Tuesday, 22nd August. The leaders will get a report on the outcomes of the deliberations of the BRICS Business Forum and will deliver their own statements on BRICS economic relations. Following the Business Forum, the leaders will move to a quieter venue for what we call the BRICS Leaders Retreat. This, as you may recall, is a signature event of South Africa as BRICS chair. Leaders meet in a comfortable setting in a private venue for an unscripted discussion of contemporary issues of importance. There is no set agenda for this retreat meeting. With respect to the summit plenary, on Wednesday, the 23rd of August, the 15th BRICS Summit will continue with a closed plenary followed by an open plenary session. BRICS leaders are expected to discuss opportunities for realizing the full potential of BRICS for inclusive global economic recovery and sustainable development, strengthening mutually beneficial partnerships with Africa and the Global South in a multipolar world, and deepening and strengthening progressive multilateralism and delivering meaningful global governance reform, as well as addressing the marginalization of women in peace processes and fostering an environment of peace and development throughout the globe. The leaders' national statements at the plenary will be followed by reports by the President of the New Development Bank, the South African chair of the BRICS Business Council, as well as the South African chair of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance, which will be reporting to the BRICS leaders in person for the first time. On the New Development Bank, you will recall that the bank was established by BRICS members in 2015 with the intent to play a catalytic role in providing financial support to emerging markets and developing countries for infrastructure and sustainable development. The bank has to date approved 12 projects in South Africa, valued at around $5.4 billion, to improve service delivery in a number of critical areas. In late 2021, the bank welcomed Bangladesh, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and Uruguay as new members, firmly positioning the bank as a preferred global financing mechanism for emerging markets and developing countries. In March this year, Ms. Dilma Rousseff, former president of Brazil, was elected as president of the new development bank. Ms. Rousseff has a unique perspective as she was chair of BRICS in 2014, when leaders signed the agreement to establish the bank in Fortaleza, Brazil. And she reminded us of this recently at the Africa-Russia summit. This will be her first engagement with BRICS leaders on the management of the bank and its progress. This will also be an opportunity for her to share her vision for the bank in the current economic climate and current global financial challenges. This is, of course, an extremely topical set of discussions, as countries of the South are reflecting on the need to bring fairness to global financial systems and to find ways of de-risking our economies and institutions from over-dependence on a single currency. On the economic relationship of BRICS, it's important to report that BRICS economies are at the center of the recovery of global economic growth, and there's a need to ensure that this brings benefits to other economies of the global South, particularly to the African continent. One of our country's key stated objectives of BRICS membership is to leverage its political and economic relations with BRICS members to address the triple challenges of inequality, poverty, and unemployment through increased intra-BRICS trade, investment, tourism, capacity building, skills, and technology transfer. Our overall trade with our BRICS partners has increased by an average growth of 10% over the period 2017 to 2021. Total South African trade with BRICS reached 830 billion rands in 2022 from 487 billion in 2017. Last year, BRICS accounted for 21% of South Africa's global trade. Trade with China remains the main trading partner, but the share of other BRICS partners also increased by 10% between 2021 to 2022. Of course, as South Africa, we continue to have a trade deficit in our overall trade with BRICS countries, and this must be addressed. There is urgent need for trade diversification as primary products continue to be the largest share of our exports. On the BRICS Business Council, the BRICS Business Council and the BRICS Women's Business Alliance are important track 2 bodies bringing together big business and women entrepreneurs respectively from all BRICS members. These important commercial networks, which are established on both ends of the business spectrum, are vital to strengthening the economic partnership in BRICS. The engagement between leaders and the BRICS Business Council, as well as the BRICS Women's Business Alliance at the summit, gives business the opportunity to make recommendations to leaders on issues of trade and investment based on their concrete experience of the business environment. As mentioned previously, the BRICS Business Council was established when South Africa chaired BRICS in 2013, and the Council is expected to share with leaders the outcomes of their review of the work of the Council over the last decade and opportunities available to strengthen the effectiveness of the Council. An area often overlooked as we approach the 10th anniversary is that of the BRICS Joint Statistics publication. In 2013, the National Statistics Offices of BRICS countries agreed to develop a common publication of statistics and statistical indicators of the BRICS countries. The publication is a comprehensive self-reflection on the economic and social development of BRICS countries. It provides the data needed by BRICS countries for policy development. Statistics South Africa, together with their BRICS counterparts, is finalizing the 2023 Joint Statistics Publication Snapshot, which will be distributed to BRICS leaders during the summit. On the BRICS Women's Business Alliance, this will be the first in-person engagement with BRICS leaders, as the alliance was established in 2020 under the chairship of Russia during the height of the pandemic. The alliance aims to empower and advance women entrepreneurs in BRICS to create a vibrant network in partnership with others, a network that facilitates knowledge sharing, skills development, and business opportunities for women across diverse sectors and industries. Their flagship meeting is the BRICS Africa Women Business Alliance Trade Conference, which will be held in Durban from the 20th to the 21st of August, and will bring together over 500 women-owned businesses, including micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises from big BRICS countries, as well as countries on the continent. The conference will include the first in-person joint meeting of the BRICS Women Business Alliance national chapters and develop recommendations to be presented to the BRICS leaders at the summit. Following reports from the New Development Bank, the BRICS Business Council, and the BRICS Women's Business Alliance, the 15th summit will adopt the Igoli Declaration as the main outcome document of the 2023 BRICS Summit. On deliverables, the Igoli Declaration will express BRICS views on contemporary regional and global political, financial, and economic issues, reflect on the outcomes of mutually beneficial areas of cooperation during the year, and the key outcomes of South Africa's chairing of the forum. South Africa is pleased to acknowledge the first meeting of ministers responsible for women affairs as an important step in mainstreaming women's issues across all areas of BRICS cooperation. We've also supported the recommendations by the Youth Summit for the establishment of a BRICS Youth Council that will add to the voices being heard by BRICS leaders at future summits. We also held the first meeting of BRICS disability experts as a concrete step forward in addressing the needs of vulnerable groups. A first seminar on public sector reform was held, and the outcomes of the exchange on best practice are supporting the National School of Government in South Africa in its policy recommendations to government. The working group on security, which focused on the use of ICTs, exchanged best practice in cybersecurity, and South Africa will in September host the first workshop on incident management, which brings together the actual computer emergency response teams from BRICS countries to workshop case studies and exchange practical experiences and knowledge. The BRICS Business Council, in collaboration with the BRICS University Network, is working to identify, connect, and establish a network of BRICS research centers of excellence in the just energy transition. This would provide analysis, data, and statistics and policy recommendations to support governments in their just transition efforts. A memorandum of understanding has been signed between the Energy and Water SETA and the National Research Foundation to establish a community of practice to fund a platform for centers of excellence in Africa and in other BRICS countries to collaborate. South Africa has launched an energy skills roadmap identifying the jobs impacted by the just energy transition and the skills that will be required by the new framework and practices. A survey of BRICS countries on current energy skills has been concluded, and the aim is to utilize the strengths and opportunities of the BRICS economies to address identified skills gaps with training courses and other opportunities for skills development. One of the expected outcomes of the BRICS Africa Women's Business Alliance Trade Conference is the launch of an e-commerce platform connecting agricultural entrepreneurs in BRICS and African countries to better integrate the continent into the agricultural value chain. Work is also underway to finalize the launch of the BRICS Center for Industrial Competencies in collaboration with UNIDO, and we hope to have some progress by the time of the summit. BRICS leaders are also expected to discuss the issue of membership expansion. This has been discussed at different levels since the BRICS summit in 2009. South Africa was welcomed to BRICS as the first beneficiary of expansion in 2010 and invited to its first BRICS summit in 2011. There is great interest in BRICS membership as countries of the global south look for alternatives in a multipolar world. We have had formal expressions of interest from the leaders of 23 countries in joining BRICS, and many more informal approaches about the possibilities of BRICS membership. We regard this interest as recognition of the voice of BRICS as a champion of the interests of the global south, particularly our agenda of reform and inclusion of the global south, true to the founding values of BRICS. As a partnership, BRICS also operates on the principles of openness, solidarity, mutual respect and understanding, as well as mutually beneficial cooperation. And we believe these principles do deliver tangible benefits to us. In the 73rd paragraph of the Beijing Declaration of the 14th BRICS Summit, BRICS leaders mandated Sherpas to hold internal discussions to clarify the guiding principles, standards, criteria, and procedures for a BRICS membership expansion process on the basis of full consultation and consensus. As chair, South Africa has continued to host discussions on membership, which have built significant convergence on possible models for the expansion process, as well as the guiding principles, standards, criteria, and procedures. We continue to meet toward reaching consensus and hope to have concrete progress registered at the summit. In 2013, South Africa as chair introduced the BRICS Africa Outreach to draw African leaders into an inclusive collaboration and association with BRICS leaders during BRICS summits. The BRICS partners are significant investors in Africa. This summit will therefore give particular attention to infrastructure development, supported by the New Development Bank and the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The AfCFTA, once fully operational, will unlock the benefits of the continental market and generate mutually beneficial opportunities for both African and BRICS countries. The BRICS model of cooperation is based on sovereign equality, mutual respect and understanding, and mutually beneficial cooperation. This is particularly valued by African countries who demand respect and reciprocal trade and investment, and also wish to get goods, products, and services from Africa to compete on an equal footing in the global economy. In 2017, China introduced the BRICS Plus to create a platform for greater interaction and partnerships among countries of the global South beyond Africa to shape a common agenda. Foreign Minister Wang Yi stated at the time, "We will widen the circle of friends of the BRICS and turn it into the most influential platform for South-South cooperation in the world." BRICS and the global South share a common desire for existing global institutional mechanisms to be both strengthened as well as reformed. Greater participation of countries of the global South will, we believe, promote inclusiveness and engender greater trust. The President has thus invited, with agreement from his fellow BRICS leaders, 67 leaders from the continent and from the global South to the BRICS Africa Outreach and BRICS Plus dialogues. The leaders cover all the continents and regions of the global South. The President has also invited 20 significant persons or dignitaries. These include the Secretary General of the United Nations, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, President of the New Development Bank, heads of African regional economic communities, African financial institutions, as well as the Secretary General of the AFCFTA and the CEO of the African Union Development Agency. The outreach and BRICS Plus dialogues will reflect on the strengthening of the mutually beneficial BRICS Africa Partnership for Growth, Development, Peace, and Inclusive Multilateralism, as well as building mutually beneficial partnerships between BRICS and the global South in a multipolar world. To date, confirmations have been received from 34 countries, and we continue to receive confirmations. I wish to conclude by saying, according to the IMF, BRICS countries, in terms of purchasing power parity, have a larger share of global economic activity than the G7 countries. This is not to say there's a competition between us, but it is a clear demonstration of the need for the voices of BRICS countries, countries of the global South, countries of Africa to be heard, listened to, and respected in global economic, financial, and political governance. The 15th BRICS Summit is the venue and occasion for the voices of BRICS, Africa, and the global South to converge and be heard. We meet to reflect on the status of cooperation, to consider regional and global developments, and to assess the status of global governance reform. We hope to leave the summit with concrete, practical, and implementable plans to strengthen the BRICS Africa partnership and having a way forward toward greater inclusion of the global South in the benefits of global economic recovery and a transformed global order. The summit is not the final event of South Africa as chair of BRICS. We continue our program of mutually beneficial cooperation until the end of 2023. We look forward to further meetings, including ministers for disaster management, ministers of tourism, a likely meeting of ministers of transport, the BRICS Parliamentary Forum, the Foreign Policy Dialogue, Young Diplomats, and the first workshop on incident management later in this year. We particularly look forward to the return of the BRICS Games in October. We are confident that we will exit 2023 having strengthened the BRICS partnership and having delivered benefits to the people of South Africa, of the BRICS, of Africa, and the Global South. We call on all South Africans to continue to extend the warmest of South African welcomes to the many official delegates, business people, media, and civil society who will arrive from various parts of the continent and the world to engage with great interest in the affairs of the summit. I'm most grateful to you for having listened to me with this very long and yet usefully informative, I hope, statement, and I thank you for your attention. I now hand over to the team from Public Diplomacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Much appreciated. We can now take questions. Just identify yourself and your media house. I see Vinicius. Please go ahead. We'll take the first round of questions. So we'll note hands. Vinicius, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Vinicius from Brazil. I registered 5 people from Global TV to cover the BRICS Summit. I have 2 very quick questions, very practical. First of all, I covered the BRICS Summit in 2018, and there were some situations where, for example, in some panels, we were not allowed to cover because the venue was, the place were full. So, but in theory, BRICS Summit, BRICS countries journalists should be prioritized. I would say, but in that case, in 2018, there were big groups of media just covering all the panels, and we were not able to do this. Will South Africa this year prioritize BRICS countries journalists? And my second question is very practical, as I said. Part of our team is coming from London with some equipments, TV equipments. A month ago, a journalist came to South Africa with a big camera. When he landed, someone started asking for fee because, you know, he was using the equipment, the camera. So it started with the $200 and ended in $2,000. I'm asking this question because I'm producing this, so I have to guarantee the team that it's everything will be okay, and no, they won't find these unforeseens when they land in South Africa. I would ask what is the rules in terms of bringing equipment from overseas? It's not important. They will use and they will go back with the equipment. Thank you.
Could I suggest that you approach the team Public Diplomacy in DIRCO? They should be accessible to you. The DDG is DDG Clayson Monyela, and he'll be able to help resolve what are practical questions. They're not in my statement, and I don't want to try to answer them. So if I could promise, and if they don't, you can write a horrible article about them if they are not helpful to you. So he's heard me, and he will assist. I think let's try and answer it that way. Yeah.
Indeed, Minister, we will get in touch with Vinicius and assist him with this logistical matters. I am noting Luyolo, Karen Duplessis, Junior Kumalo, Claire, and Ricardo. In that order, please. Please be brief, no preambles before the questions. And we could just have one question per journalist because we don't have a lot of time. Thanks. Let's go ahead.
Yes.
Luyolo, Karen Duplessis, Junior, Claire, and Ricardo, in that order, please.
Hello, can you hear us?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. It's RT International TV channel from Moscow. We have got two questions. So the first question is that the hotel where our journalist will be staying is located next to the summit site and is in the red zone. Will there be any restrictions on leaving the red zone or traveling within it? And is the Mina Business Center, where our studio will be located, included into the red zone? And the second question, please. Our channel has 7 multilingual newsrooms. Can we consider them as different channels and accredit a different set of journalists from each channel? Thank you very much.
I see there's a need for a logistical briefing to the media.
I'm here to brief on the summit itself and its content. I will suggest to Clayson Mungela, they have a logistics briefing for the media. So we will arrange that later this week or early next week. Then you can ask all the logistics questions, because as minister, I'm not arranging all of that. So if I could ask on logistics, and I think it will be our colleagues from Brazil, Russia, China, India, who may want to ask those, a special briefing will be arranged on accreditation and so on. Could we agree on that?
Thank you very much. Actually, we have got
yes, Minister.
We have got questions about the content. When can we expect the list of countries participants and at what level? And when can we expect the official program of the summit? Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, can we move on to the next question?
Hello.
No. We've got you. We've got your questions. It's okay. You'll get responses. We're getting other people now to ask questions. Liolo, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello. Thank you so much. Liolam Kendana from the Business Day. Minister, is there any sanctions that will be taken against the US ambassador for his accusations that South Africa supplied Russia with weapons? Because we know now that it's not the case as per the article by the city press. So could you please comment on that? Thank you so much.
This was not in the minister's statement, but okay. Karen, go ahead.
Thank you, Clayson, and thank you, Minister. Karine du Plessis from Reuters. I have two quick questions. I just want to know if climate and climate change is on the BRICS summit agenda, and if so, what will be the discussions around it? And if it's not on the agenda, why isn't it on the BRICS agenda? And my second question, apart from the Chinese state visit by the president, will there be any other state visits around the BRICS summit, either by BRICS head of state or by other attendees of the summit? So yeah, so is the Chinese state visit the only state visit that's sort of hooked on the summit? Thank you so much.
Junior Kumalo.
Yeah, it's Junior Kumalo from Newsroom Africa. Just a question on the attendance by the BRICS presidents. There was reports that the Indian Prime Minister was not willing to come, and there was a phone call conversation with President Cyril Ramaphosa. Could you confirm that? Is that true? And what was the reason for his hesitation? Was it because of the current disputes between China and India with regards to the border along the Himalayan region, or was it another different reason? Thank you.
Claire was next. Junior, you fall for fake news all the time, my brother. Claire?
Yes, good afternoon, Minister. Claire Barjoles for Radio France International. I was wondering if there is already some confirmations from African leaders that they will take part and come in Johannesburg, and also is French President Emmanuel Macron is invited or not to take part in the summit?
Yeah, Minister, I don't know whether we want to answer the questions for now, or should I continue?
Yeah, but I think let me answer this first set. As I've said with the two colleagues from the media, Vinicius and the Moscow-based colleague, a briefing on logistics to iron out any challenges and queries should be held by DIRCO, and we should provide all the necessary assistance to ease the work of the media with respect to the summit. So I leave that to Clayson to address. With respect to the business day question, I have not had sight myself of the report that was referred to in the article in City Press. I would anticipate there should be a discussion in government, and perhaps once we have looked at that report, we might then determine what further action might be considered by government. I've not seen the report, and it's not been in any formal meeting of government that I have attended. Is climate change on the agenda? It's not as a separate subject, but certainly is part of what we are addressing. I made reference, for example, to matters of the just transition, but there's no way in which BRICS countries would hold a summit and not reflect on matters of climate change, and particularly given that COP28 is around the corner. So indeed, it is anticipated that deriving from the deliberations by ministers of energy and other fora which have had detailed discussion on this matter, that climate change must and will feature in the deliberations of the heads of state. I must say, I believe you can't discuss sustainable development without discussing climate change, because it's so relevant to us living or having a world and an environment that allows humanity to thrive beyond the dates of this summit. So I believe it is there. On state visits, I am in possession of the program with respect to the president of China. There is an anticipation of another state visit, but I don't have a formal confirmation of program as yet. It is a work in progress, and once I have clear confirmation, I'll be able, Karen, to give you that information as well. With respect to India, I did speak to various of colleagues in government and outside, and everybody was astounded at this rumor. I think there's someone who's trying to spoil our summit and create all sorts of stories that suggest that it won't be successful. The Prime Minister of India has never said he's not attending the summit. I'm in constant contact with the Foreign Affairs Minister. Minister Jay Shankar has never said it. Our Sherpas are in touch, they've never said it. So we've all been trying to look for this needle in a haystack that began this rumor. The phone call had been in the planning for quite some time. As you know, President interfaces with all the BRICS leaders on a consistent basis. You would also remember that President has been sharing deliberations on the matter of the Africa Peace Mission with all the BRICS leaders as matters develop. And so we did have the phone call on our agenda. It had nothing to do with this purported rumor of non-attendance. African leaders attending, we have confirmation from a number of leaders who will be attending. I've now just forgotten the last part of your question. We will make names available closer to the summit. I'm wary of doing so at the moment because sometimes leaders change their programs, and I wouldn't like us to publish and then find that the leader is not attending due to other scheduled matters. But we have been receiving very positive responses, and at the moment, I believe as South Africa's foreign minister or minister of international relations, I'm encouraged and pleased at the responses. I'm sorry, I can't remember, Radio International, what the final part of your question was.
It was, is the French president invited? Emmanuel Macron.
Okay, yes, that's why I forgot it. It's quite amusing. No invitation has been issued in that regard.
Thank you, Minister. Thanks, Minister. Let's go for the second round, which is probably going to be the final one. I see hands from Peter and a guest who I suspect is in Moscow, and then Ricardo Della, Kaya Koko, and Diane Hocker. In that order, please. Very brief questions, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Clayton, and thank you, Minister. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay. Could you tell us if the Iranian, I know you said you didn't want to talk about who might be coming. There's some reports that the Iranian president will be coming. And I just want to know, are there any concerns amongst any members that BRICS, via the membership acquisition of new members, might acquire a different kind of character from what it's had, including the possibility of becoming more of a kind of a, anti-Western, pro-Russian bloc? Also, is IPSA going to be held alongside this, or is it going to be held at a different time to emphasize its particular identity? Thank you.
All right. The colleague from Moscow. ACR, that's your name here. Okay, if you're not ready, we'll move on to Ricardo. Ricardo, go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Minister. Thank you very much. Minister, you mentioned in your statement that you expect concrete progress in the debate over membership. So I have two brief questions. Do you think that we are going in a way for a broad announcement of many countries to join BRICS in the summit, or will it be more likely something that a smaller number of countries to be announced? And the second question is, would you say that today Brazil and India are the two countries who are more hesitant and resisting any expansion of the BRICS group? Thank you very much.
Right, Kaya.
Good afternoon, Minister, and good afternoon, everyone. I just want to find out regarding time allocations for discussions around what the Minister referred to as the single dominant currency, or delisting from and being dependent on a single dominant currency. How much time will be allocated to that? And is there appetite, or how much appetite is there among BRICS nations and invited countries for the delisting or non-dependence of the single currency, which I assume is the US dollar? Thank you.
Diane.
Good afternoon, Minister, and to everyone else. Question regarding the African leaders and members of the Global South who've been invited. Obviously, there seems to be quite a lot of interest. The Minister mentioned, I think, 67 African leaders and members of the Global South were invited, but obviously all 67 would not be able to join BRICS. Is there a criteria that the BRICS countries, or at least South Africa, is considering when it comes to who should be joining and why they should be allowed to join?
All right, Seed Hand, you'll be the last one. Go ahead.
Hi, ma'am. This is Siddhant from Beyond. We met in Delhi earlier this year. My question to you is, how do you see India's role in the BRICS? And my second question is that an official visit request was sent from South Africa for the Indian Prime Minister. Will the Indian Prime Minister's visit be also an official visit?
All right, thank you for those questions. This was the final round. Minister, just the last question from the SABC, which is something that's not in our statement. They're asking, how concerned is South Africa about the situation in Niger?
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Let me try to answer these questions. On the matters raised by Peter Fabricius, I don't think we see BRICS as being pro-Russia or anti-Western. I think that would be extremely wrong. As I've said many times before, South Africa's trading partners in the West are very, very important to South Africa's economic progress. So I don't think we would join or be part of any organization that is anti this and pro that. We have a set of principles and values that I have articulated, which join us together, and we pursue those. None of them are intended to make enemies of anyone. We believe in a world that collaborates and that works together to the greater good, a world that is representative, where we all have opportunity. So I certainly would guard against having any set of criteria for expansion that lead us down a path where we contribute to increasing conflict in the global community or in any part of the world. The president of Iran is certainly invited. I believe that there's a strong possibility that he will attend the Outreach and BRICS Plus meeting, but this is not by any means an intention to build some form of bloc that is anti-Western, and I hope you will not convey any such intention on our part in whatever you may write on this particular media briefing. The next question is with respect to IPSA. IPSA will not meet on the sidelines of BRICS. We have already planned an IPSA meeting, which will take place on the sidelines of UNGA in New York. This has already been agreed by the foreign ministers that are part of the IPSA grouping. We continue to be quite active and have a number of joint initiatives that we cooperate on as IPSA colleagues. So we will have that meeting at UNGA, on the sidelines of UNGA. On expansion, Ricardo, as the foreign ministers and the Sherpas, we've been working on this expansion document on guidelines, principles, and procedures. And we will be submitting our final document to the leaders in the course of the 15th summit. We will also provide them with an indication of the countries that have formally expressed interest, either by writing or other direct contact. We will provide them with those country names, and they must then consider the document, have their debate. We've had our very rich debate as foreign ministers and officials, and they must then make whatever conclusions. The final decision will be theirs as the leaders in BRICS, not ours. We will provide information and they must then process. We've had extensive discussions as ministers of international relations and foreign affairs. On some aspects, we've disagreed, all of us. On others, we've agreed. I don't think it's right to single out Brazil or India. All of us have agreed that we accept expansion as foreign ministers, but the final decision lies with the leaders. We, of course, will be advising our heads of state, and I've already spoken to ours here, and I'm sure others are talking to their heads of state. But I don't think there's any longer the need to say this one is hesitant, that one isn't. I think countries will speak for themselves, and my expectation is that there will be a final view from the leaders, and I hope we'll be able to put this matter to rest following their deliberations. We are close to finality. I'm having another meeting with my colleagues. I think it's on the 10th of August or 20th, the 12th of August, and we will look at the final document and then forward it to give the leaders enough time to reflect on what we are proposing. To Mr. Koko, I think really what we're expecting at this meeting is a briefing from the NDP on the initial thinking around this matter of currencies and payment systems, as well as international financial institutions. I do not anticipate that major decisions will be made at this point, but I might very well be wrong. I know the finance ministers have already met. They've begun exploring this matter, and I think it will be up to the leaders, following the briefing by the president of the NDB, as to how much time they devote to discussing this particular issue. But there isn't a set time. From time to time, the leaders pick up an issue. They may discuss it from 11 p.m. until 2 a.m. I've been in such meetings, but it is entirely up to them as to the importance of the issue, whether we have conclusive information on it, or we are initiating a focus area and therefore introduce the subject for further investigation and more discussion in a year leading to decision at a particular time, as has happened with expansion. The criteria for expansion, Diane, as I say, we've been deliberating on this. We really believe that we would want to include matters of adherence or attachment to the UN Charter, respect and support for multilateralism, recognition that we're not displacing the United Nations, it's the premier global multilateral institution, committed to openness, transparency, appreciating values of inclusion, and having a responsible attitude to matters that are important for the survival of the globe. These would be some of the principles and criteria that we have reflected upon with the Sherpas, and they are incorporated in the document that I hope finally we will hand to the leaders after our meeting on the 12th of August. To Siddharth, how do we see India's role? It's an extremely important role that India plays in the context of BRICS. I made reference to BRICS and its contribution as the 5 countries to the world's population, to the world's GDP. India is a significant contributor to the percentages and quantum I have referred to. It's the most populous country in the world, and therefore extremely important. a significantly large and growing economy. And so it is for us a very important country of the South, and continues to be a necessary and an important part of the BRICS family, not just as a founding member, but because of the attributes and characteristics of economy, population, development, skills, and world stage presence. So we regard India as extremely important for BRICS, hence its presence in this very important global forum. On Niger, we are, of course, as South Africa, dismayed by developments, fourth coup on the African continent in less than 2 years. This is extremely disturbing. We believe we must do more to develop, as I've said previously, early warning mechanisms. But we hope that ECOWAS will have successful interactions with the coup leaders, and that they will persuade them to return to the barracks and allow the democratically elected president of Niger to resume the role of leading that country's government. Thank you very much, Clayson. I think that has answered all the questions. If there are any I've left out, I leave it to you, Clayson, to help me.
Thank you very much, Minister. No, indeed, you have covered all questions. Colleagues, the logistics briefing that the Minister was talking about and will be held on Thursday, this coming Thursday, but the communication will be sent out to everyone using all the usual platforms Thursday at noon, and this is to accommodate the different time zones, particularly in Brazil and India. So this will be confirmed, but pencil it down for Thursday at noon. We'll deal with all the logistical issues that some of you have raised and more. On that note, Minister, thank you very much for making time, and a word of appreciation to all the media houses for responding to our invitation, and hopefully the information that we've dished out will find expression in your coverage. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.